Canada and the U.S. strike a tentative trade deal this Wednesday night. The proposed agreement putting a pause on the president's new tariffs.
We needed to ensure that the supply management regime remained entirely intact.
The details beginning to emerge and the consequences for Canadian industries.
The bans of alcohol in the provinces is an important card.
Misinformation on separation, the warning about a rise in foreign interference ahead of Alberta's referendum. Plus, big anti-earrings.
It's awesome.
The fashion celebration of Indigenous identity and humor.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Hello and thank you for joining us on a busy evening. We are learning new details tonight about the tentative trade deal between Canada and the U.S. President Donald Trump was first to announce the agreement late last night. And as a result, new U.S. tariffs that were set to take effect today will now be paused for at least 3 days while the agreement is finalized.
So subject to the finalization of documents, we have a deal with Canada. And I think it's a very good deal for both parties.
Now, President Trump claimed the proposed agreement is great news for American farmers and the Keystone XL pipeline. But very few details on the deal have been officially released so far. Mackenzie Gray begins our coverage with what Canada stands to gain and give up in this deal.
The president declaring victory.
Yeah, we had a very good conversation with the Prime Minister last night, and we've come to a deal with Canada.
A deal the Prime Minister says still requires work to be officially completed, but a source with direct knowledge of the talks has laid out its framework to Global News. The Americans are set to cut current steel, aluminum and auto tariffs on Canada, but softwood lumber is unlikely to get a cut. Details on the exact reductions aren't clear, but Donald Trump did confirm it would take place.
We may bring some of the tariffs down to a level where other countries are, because Canada was paying a higher tariff.
Negotiations are continuing, with Canada's chief negotiator staying in D.C. for talks, particularly on autos. What level new auto tariffs will land at and what they specifically will apply to is still being decided. Auto industry insiders had warned the Carney government if they accept the main U.S. proposal of a 15% tariff on Canadian-made autos and parts, auto plants would close after their current model's production was done. The source also said there will still need to be more auto negotiations once free trade talks start. In terms of what Canada gave up, the White House publicly said Canada moved on 3 sectors, including dairy.
We needed to protect supply management. We needed to ensure that the supply management regime remained entirely intact, and I'm confident that that's the case.
The U.S. had been seeking changes to rules on the types of dairy products that could be sold into Canada tariff-free, and while there are still negotiations, that seems likely it will happen. The Americans also said there was movement on Canadian retaliatory auto tariffs, but the big one is putting U.S. booze back on provincial store shelves, which has put the premiers into a bit of a corner.
The ask of the Prime Minister is for some of the procurement rules that have been put in place by a number of provinces, specifically around American alcohol, that those would be changed in the near future.
So no booze, no deal. The source saying they believe the current deal is better for most provinces than having to threaten 50% tariffs coming into place. But watch for additional government help or policy changes for businesses or provinces who might not be happy with this potential deal. There could be other concessions or things Canada has to give up to get this potential deal, but it's the Liberals' view that this agreement, in whatever form it takes, is better than the alternative of new 50% tariffs and less certainty for businesses. The job now for Carney to sell it to the premiers, businesses, Canadians, and maybe most importantly, Jeff, the president, who has a penchant for reneging on things at the last second or demanding additional concessions to actually get a final deal.
All right, Mackenzie Gray tracking the fast-moving developments in Ottawa. Thank you, Mac. And business owners across this country have also been working the phones and hitting refresh on their news feeds all day looking for more information on the tentative deal. The few details gleaned so far have some industry leaders worried about what Canada stands to lose to stave off the president's latest tariff threat. Heidi Petracek now on The View from Canadian businesses.
From American booze to dairy cow moos, the U.S. trade representative has said the framework of a deal eliminates some trade irritants. Canadian businesses and industries want to know more.
Ultimately, they will be judged based on what we're able to achieve in lowering some of the existing tariffs.
The provincial boycotts of American alcohol on store shelves has been a bitter pill for the Trump administration to swallow that one political scientist hopes Canada didn't concede.
The bans of alcohol in the provinces
is an important card, a trump card that we have.
Although one Cape Breton whiskey distiller says seeing shelf space go back to U.S. products isn't as bad as 50% tariffs on his exports to the South.
We have a long-standing arrangement within North America that we can sell our products fairly easily across our borders. And I hope we get back to that.
For the forestry sector, the pause on Donald Trump's Section 338 tariffs is positive.
We're an industry that knows a lot about trade irritants.
But there's much more that needs to be resolved.
We have this long-standing softwood lumber dispute at which I believe this negotiation could and should be a pathway to get back to the table.
A new Leger poll asked Canadians how they want federal negotiators to approach U.S. trade talks. About 60% said they should take a hard line with no more concessions. And about 30% said they should be flexible and make compromises if necessary. As for dairy, Canada's chief negotiator is confident supply management remains intact. Whether this latest development brings any trade certainty down the line, though, remains another matter. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
News of the tentative deal helped push the Canadian dollar to its highest level in 2.5 months. The loonie traded at 72.34 cents US today. While it's good news for consumers, it adds even more pressure on Canadian exporters who sell to the U.S. Turning to other news now, the man accused of a bomb threat against the U.S. consulate in Halifax is now facing a terrorism-related charge. 54-year-old Ali Asekere was arrested last week after an alleged threat that forced the evacuation of part of downtown Halifax for several hours. He's charged with making a threat against an internationally protected person. He's also accused of uttering threats and public mischief. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says she's been briefed by CSIS and the RCMP on apparent attempts by foreign actors to influence that province's upcoming separation referendum. The Premier's comments come after a Canadian research group revealed foreign interference efforts are increasing, with content from Russia and the U.S. promoting pro-separation narratives, including Alberta becoming the 51st state. Heather Yourex-West on who's behind the messages and the Alberta government's response.
Trump threatens tariffs, attacks Canadian dollar, and engineers stock market instability. Canadian researchers say this half-truthful headline was produced by Russia in early August, but its misleading messaging was soon shared and amplified by Canadian creators more than a dozen times.
83% of disinformation is actually passed on by the average Canadian. Disinformation only really works when the people in various different countries are able to infiltrate sort of organic networks or Canadian networks.
The Centre for Artificial Intelligence, Data and Conflict has been closely monitoring foreign disinformation campaigns aimed at influencing Alberta's upcoming separation referendum, releasing a report in May warning campaigns out of Russia and the U.S. have been promoting both Alberta's secession and its becoming a 51st state.
The amount of coverage that we received after May, we actually saw a drop-off of the amount of disinformation targeting Canada. But each week we're starting to see a little bit more as we get closer to the referendum.
We're not surprised at all, because here on the ground in Alberta, we have seen this quite overtly for a number of months.
But those on the ground in Alberta promoting separatism are more skeptical.
Is the suggestion that the reason there's so much inflation is because of the Russians and some kind of Russian propaganda? This is a distraction. This report.
There are legitimate reasons and there are legitimate democratic discussions that need to be had. Our role is to be able to identify when those are being manipulated and amplified by people who are not Canadians in order to pull us apart, in order to increase polarization.
The provincial government says it's working with law enforcement partners to identify and deal with potential foreign interference in the lead up to this fall's referendum, while the Centre for Artificial Intelligence, Data and Conflict plans to publish its observations every 2 weeks until Albertans hit the polls October 19th. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Ukraine's former defense minister is calling for a wartime election.
Демократія не може бути заручницею Росії.
That's Mikhailo Fedorov saying democracy cannot be held hostage by Russia. Ukraine's elections have been suspended since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. President Volodymyr Zelensky's term technically ended in 2024. Fedorov is credited for helping to advance Ukraine's drone program, and he also claimed corruption in the defense ministry was undermining Ukraine's war effort. Fedorov was subsequently fired by Zelensky in July, sparking mass protests. And a second Ukrainian suspect has been arrested in connection with the explosions that damaged the Nord Stream pipeline back in 2022. The suspect, a trained diver, was arrested in Croatia and will now be extradited to Germany. He's accused of being part of a group of saboteurs who planted explosives on the undersea pipelines, which funnel Russian natural gas to Germany. Last month, charges were filed against a former Ukrainian army officer in connection with the explosion. The Ukrainian government denies any involvement. Israel's military has opened a criminal investigation into the killing of a 5-year-old Palestinian girl, 6 members of her family, and 2 paramedics who came to their aid. It's the first time Israel's defense forces have admitted to the killings in 2024 in Gaza. Israel says it will also criminally investigate a second Gaza war incident. But as Redmond Shannon reports, other allegations will not be investigated, including the killing of a Canadian aid worker.
It is one of the most shocking killings of the war in Gaza. Hiding in this car alongside 6 killed relatives, 5-year-old Hind Rajab spoke on the phone to the Red Crescent, saying a tank was approaching. Rajab was found killed several days later. 2 paramedics who came to rescue her were killed too. Israel's military had not taken responsibility until today. It has opened a criminal investigation due to alleged failures in the coordination of the movement of the Palestine Red Crescent ambulance.
This is the exception, right? That by and large, there have been no investigation, there has been no enforcement.
Mayan Geva is researching Israeli military internal investigations, which she calls a black hole of secrecy.
The fact that we're seeing this case investigated is clearly because of the attention that it's gotten internationally.
They are shooting at a car. Attention that included an Oscar-nominated docudrama. The IDF says it will also criminally investigate the killing of 15 people in a convoy in southern Gaza, including medics and a UN worker, but says it will not pursue 3 other cases of aid worker deaths, including the killing of 7 people in a World Central Kitchen convoy 2 years ago. Among the dead, Canadian-American Jacob Flickinger. The IDF cites the manner in which the vehicles were moving and says it was not informed of the presence of the charity's armed security force. In a statement, World Central Kitchen said the decision is inconsistent with the full truth and deeply offensive. We demand an independent commission to investigate. Likewise, Hind Rajab's grandmother says she does not trust the Israeli military to investigate itself. The 5-year-old is one of around 20,000 children that the UN estimates have been killed in the war. Jeff?
Redmond Shannon in London, thanks. A surprising result from the U.S. primaries. Coming up, what it could signal for the Democrats' chances in the upcoming midterms. Well, turning to the U.S. and a major upset in the Florida Democratic primary. The Democrats surprised many by picking a socialist to run for the Senate. Candice Cole reports from Washington on what it signals for the Democrats' direction and their chances of seizing some power in the upcoming midterms.
We, the hard-working, everyday people of Florida, send a shockwave to the Washington, D.C.
That's Florida's Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate, Angie Nixon, giving her victory speech after winning against Democratic favorite Alex Vindman. He testified against U.S. President Donald Trump during his first impeachment 7 years ago and raised $16 million compared to just under $1 million raised by Nixon. Nixon's victory follows a trend of Democratic socialist wins over establishment Democrat candidates throughout the U.S. primary elections. Experts say part of the reason progressives are gaining a stronger foothold in the primaries is due in part to lower voter turnout during the summer months, giving Nixon a leg up in the race. And
the other part of it is Angie Nixon was an excellent candidate. She's a good speaker. She is energetic. She is able to make her points in the way that you have to make them in the ultra media age. And the Democrat was not able to do that. He was not a particularly impressive candidate.
As progressives are celebrating primary wins, Republicans could be the ones to reap the benefit in the midterm elections this fall.
The Republican Party had tremendous success last night.
Following the Florida results, Trump called Vindman's loss to Nixon gratifying, referring to Nixon as a radical left lunatic who will lose to Republican incumbent Senator Ashley Moody. But if Democrats are able to close the divide between the two factions within the party, it could result in a potential blue wave come November.
It can work in the party's favor if the factions come together and they remember that their political enemy is Donald Trump and the Republicans and not the other half of the Democratic Party.
The next Democratic primary race is set for September 1st in Massachusetts. Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
China doubles down on humanoids. Still ahead, why Beijing's rush to build robots is drawing the ire of the U.S. A new report on artificial intelligence in the workforce reveals which workers are being replaced by AI. The study from Goldman Sachs says AI usage created about 9,000 jobs in the U.S. in April of this year, but also eliminated roughly 25,000 during that same period. The research also warns 15 million workers could lose their jobs because of AI over the next decade. Workers in call centers, software publishing, and management consulting have endured some of the biggest job losses so far. Artificial intelligence and robotics are expected to be a major front in the power struggle between the U.S. and China. Beijing is pouring money and ambition into the industry, with the World Robot Conference underway right now in Beijing, showcasing products that can transform everyday life. And as these machines get more human-like, the U.S. is growing more concerned. Taria Isri reports.
In the global race for advanced robotics, China leads the pack. And it's showing off some of its heaviest hitters here at the 2026 World Robot Conference in Beijing, where about 3,000 products are on display.
We see China as a very strategic market for us. Number one, because it is becoming the center of humanoid technology.
Robots built to look and move like people. They can dance, play table tennis, even direct traffic. There are also quadrupeds, four-legged robots that look more animal than human. China is flexing its robotics muscle just weeks after the Trump administration moved to ban imports of foreign-made humanoids.
China is taking this as an attack on themselves.
But it affects all countries, including Canada.
The U.S. is a lot more concerned about the influx of low-cost and potentially insecure Chinese robots than they are about other robots being made from other countries.
Despite the ban, a Chinese robotics trailblazer leapt to a remarkable stock debut. Shares in Unitree soared 460%, giving the company a market value of $51 billion US, after it became the first humanoid robotics maker listed on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. This week, the company unveiled a so-called Superman robot, which can jump 2 meters high and, according to Unitree, run faster than Jamaican superstar sprinter Usain Bolt. Rising hype around an industry at the heart of a power struggle between Washington and Beijing. Taria Isri, Global News, Montreal.
Up next, the statement jewelry, bringing Indigenous communities together in cultural celebration and competition. Organizers of the Edmonton Marathon are admitting a major stumble. They say this weekend's race was too long. A construction detour caused the route to be about 675 meters longer than it was supposed to be. The marathon organizers are apologizing to racers and say they're now working with Athletics Canada to determine how results will be recognized for qualification to other races, such as the Boston Marathon. Treaty Days are a summer and early fall staple in many First Nations communities. It's a time when government representatives hand out crisp $5 bills, the annual annuity from Canada to those with Indian status in certain treaty territories. It's also a time to celebrate culture with feasts and powwows. And as Melissa Ridgen reports, there's a new trend this year honoring aunties and earrings.
Indigenous crafted earrings have been having a moment the past few years, even hitting the world's hottest fashion runways as powerful statements of cultural resilience, identity, and beauty. As their popularity has grown, so has the size. The biggest and best, affectionately called Big Auntie earrings. And at dozens of treaty days this summer, they're the star.
Indigenous people we like to use humor in a lot of the things we do. And so what a better way than to take something that a lot of us wear with pride, is like the earrings, and add some humor to it. I guess the trend kind of just started this summer, so I've noticed it just kind of came out of nowhere, but glad it did. It's awesome.
Delaney Briere won Saugeen First Nations Big Auntie earring competition.
Looking at the top part of the earring, I'm like, what would look like that? And then I was grabbing a sweater in my closet. I'm like, a hanger, that looks exactly like. Came across pool noodles, and I'm like, perfect. I could cut those down to make little beads. It was awesome.
Yeah, $300, awesome.
Yeah.
You paid probably a few bucks to make those things, and you walked out with a big payday.
Yeah.
On top of your $5 from the government.
Yeah. $305. It's just a fun way to get people together and laugh together.
Big Auntie earrings and Big Auntie laughs.
I think it will stick around. I mean, everyone loves it.
These contests adding a whole bunch of new fun to Treaty Days. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is the North Pacific Cannery National Historic Site near Port Edward, BC. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you back here again tomorrow. Have a great night.